So what is to be gained by fighting?
Maybe nothing. Maybe a lot. I'd like to be the one to make that decision.
I want you to know that this thing just made a very large dent in my ship.
The year is 2024.
The name of the podcast, Babylon 5.
For the first time.
Welcome to Babylon 5 for the first time, not a Star Trek podcast. My name is Jeff Akin.
And I'm Brent Allen. Jeff and I are two veteran Star Trek nerds who decided to watch Babylon 5 30 years too late. And when we did so, we fell in love with the series so much that we've decided to continue it with movies and books, and now, specifically, with Crusade for the first time.
And just like always, we're going to be searching for those deep hidden messages, those sci-fi messages that are held within this series, because, Brent, this is not a Star Trek podcast.
No.
We used to call these Star Trek references, right? But it's not a Star Trek podcast, and to keep us on our toes for that, we play our long-running game called the Rule of Three, which is a game that limits us to no more than 3 references to Star Trek per episode.
That's it. 3. One of those plays. No substitutions, exchanges, or refund.
And if we make one of those references, Jeff,
you're going to hear this. I don't think Star Trek is the series we need to worry about making references about in this one.
Probably, well, sure.
We'll get to that.
Yeah.
Hey, Brent.
Hey, Jeff.
We have a 4-star review.
Yay? Cool. We'll take them all.
We take all of them, that's for sure. We take them all the time. We'll read it. And this one is from Apple Podcasts. Darth Kalis says.
Darth Kalis. Wow, mixing your franchises there. Okay. So it's Darth Kalis on a Babylon 5 show.
Well, the Dark Lord says, the longer I listen, the worse it gets.
Okay.
Be prepared for a lot of, well, actuallys. It's a couple of typical Berman Braga Trek fans. They think their non-Roddenberry Trek is the only Trek. Every criticism they level at this show could be leveled at the Berman-verse times 10. Can't handle TOS, but Harry Potter? Ew.
Okay. Thanks for the 4-star review, Darth Kalis. They're a person who's on the dark side. Maybe for them, the longer they listen, the worse it gets is actually a good thing.
Right. It's kind of like on You Can't Do That on Television. It's like an opposite day.
Because it is a 4-star review. I mean, if they hated it as much as it sounds like to us, this would be like way lower. So they still gave us 4 stars. It's all right.
It's high praise from the Dark Lord.
Thanks for the review.
We'll read them. You send them in, we'll read them.
Hey, one thing they are right about. I don't know if I could say this as blanket as they do, but every criticism they level at the show could be leveled at the Berman verse times 10. Every criticism we level at any sci-fi show could be leveled at any of the Star Treks times 10. And we've done that as Star Trek podcasters.
Right. Many, many times.
We'll be consistent with that too.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, Jeff, we like to read reviews. Even listen, it's a 4-star review, and my mind's a little blown right now. We like to read reviews. We like to play our game, the Rule of Three. We like to do another thing where we get to the end of the show and we guess what the next week's episode is going to be about based on title alone, having never seen it, never looked at thumbnails, never read show descriptions. Well, this is the part where we come back and we try to think about what we said last week that this week was going to be about and see how well we did. So, Jeff, what did you say this week Visitors from Down the Street was going to be about, and how close were you?
Ultimately, I thought it was going to be a Matheson telepath episode, but I thought it was going to be like this telepath virus that came and did kind of like the Twilight Zone thing of the monsters are due on Maple Street sort of piece. I will say that we did get some Matheson and we did get some telepath stuff in this one, but that was far from the point of the episode. What did you think it was going to be about?
Well, I said that this was going to be a comedy episode. We're going to get a crossover for some Babylon 5 characters. Maybe we'd actually get to meet Lockley in this one since she's in the opening credits. We still haven't seen her. Maybe we'll see one of the other, Lanier, Garibaldi, one of those kind of guys. But, kind of that offbeat and kind of quirky sort of show, whatever. I got offbeat. I don't know that I'd say it's a comedy. Quirky for sure. Crossover from another show, kinda, I guess. Not really. Yeah, so I think I was aiming in the right direction. I just completely missed the target.
That's fair. That sounds about right.
Well, Jeff, for those who may not have actually seen this episode, because it has occurred to us on more than one occasion that there are people who've never actually watched Crusade, and they could really be listening to us never having seen the episode. Totally cool. We get it. Or maybe people haven't seen it since it originally aired, or it's been a while. Why don't you remind the folks out there, Jeff, what this episode was actually about?
Well, it's a normal routine day. Tooling through space, picking up a distress call, picking up a broken down shuttle, helping out the aliens, and wait, are those aliens wearing suits? Yeah, they sure are, and they even speak English. And almost everything they say is about the conspiracy theory that humans have been visiting their planet for centuries. They've apparently created agencies in the government to conceal all their activities. It's really the alien conspiracies that we have here now, but with an Uno reverse card getting played on us. But this conspiracy theory comes with receipts. Fox Draconi has drawings, pictures of blimps. The government calls those pictures swamp gases. Sound familiar? They even have a picture of Mount Rushmore, or 6 grandfathers. Gideon is listening. He recognizes the cover-ups. They're the same ones that we've heard, but he's not quite buying it. It doesn't add up. But he does agree to look it all over. But before he makes any kind of a decision, Special Agent Kendar comes on board. He wants Draconi and Lissa, and he wants to execute them. Gideon pulls everybody together, and it does not go well. Draconi pulls a gun out of Kendar's holster and takes him hostage. Security teams go looking for him and finally corner them in the bullet train tube. They arrest him, send him back to their ships. After the first two leave, Kendar Bond villain monologues and explains that they've been fostering this conspiracy for about 200 years. It's brought peace. It's ended their civil wars. He talks about his love for pizza and ice cream, and then he lights up a smoke and heads out. Gideon seeds their planet with copies of the Interstellar Encyclopedia and the true story of what happened. I'm pretty sure that'll absolutely put all the conspiracy theory stuff to rest. Because Brent, the truth is out there. What were your first thoughts when you watched Visitors from Down the Street?
You know, I said in my prediction that this was going to be a comedy episode, for that sort of offbeat break from the norm. And like I said, while it wasn't a comedy, it definitely was offbeat. It was definitely a break from the norm. Overall, I found this episode enjoyable, even if a bit forgettable. I would definitely watch it again, but probably only while doing laundry. Now, all of that said, I want to go ahead and just sort of preempt something, if I could here, Jeff.
Okay.
Because got a lot of comments about it from the Brent Watches video that went out on YouTube this week and even on Patreon. I understand, and we'll just say this right up front. This show was almost a parody of X-Files, another great 90s sci-fi show. Here's the thing for me, Jeff, and I don't know if this is true for you. There's a reason I didn't watch Babylon 5 back in the 90s when it first came out. Because in the 90s, I wasn't watching much TV, period, including sci-fi. I didn't come to sci-fi until I was in my 20s, in the 2000s. So I missed a lot of that early Star Trek. I missed a lot of the I missed the really early Star Trek, but then I missed, I missed a lot of that. I missed X-Files. I missed Babylon 5. I've Sequest. I've missed all those. I never saw them. To this day, I still haven't seen X-Files. That is a new show to me. So all the references in this show that call back to X-Files, they're just going to go over my head, guys. I haven't seen it yet. Please save the click-clacks and trying to tell me off and ask me how I could forget it, because I just don't have a frame of reference, which is why I go back to my original opening thought of I enjoyed this episode, even if I found it forgettable, because I don't have those connection points to make it really stand out to me. How about you, Jeff?
I watched the X-Files as it came out. The guitar player in my band had he thought it was pretty healthy, but he had a bit of a obsession with Gillian Anderson, who played, who played Scully on there. So that's where my mind always goes whenever I think X-Files is him and the posters and the wallpaper on his computer he had. But it was an okay show. So I think I shared in some conversations this week that I watched X-Files as it came out. I liked it. I was never into it necessarily. And I went back and tried to rewatch it, 4 or 5 years ago, and I don't feel like it aged very well. I tapped out before the first season, before I even got through the first season.
Yeah.
But it was very much a series of its time, and so I think that was an interesting time in a lot of ways. But, same, I enjoyed the episode. It was interesting to me that it was a total throwaway. Like, they didn't even mention the plague in this one at all. And my understanding is that when the 13 episodes were written, they had no idea that they'd been canceled yet. Somewhere between writing and filming or something like that is when all that went down. So 22 episode seasons, you're not necessarily doing this hyper serialized arc like they did in Babylon 5. So you're going to get some of these throwaway episodes. And we got the stuff in it that you get in those. We got a little bit of insight into Matheson. We got some stuff about Gideon. We got some stuff that they thought was hilarious, but was just so gross. Yeah, this was an episode. If it was anything, I feel like JMS was just trying to do two things in this. He was trying to say, hey, X-Files. Oh, and screw you, Star Trek and the Prime Directive.
Oh, we'll definitely talk about that. I am sure.
Yeah.
Jeff, if I could kick this off, I want to start with maybe at least the more superficial piece of it. I want to start talking about the makeup, the fish faces. I didn't even catch the name of their alien race. I'm just going to call them the fish faces. I found it really jarring in this episode, coming off of the wonderful, fantastic makeup that we saw in Babylon 5, particularly with Jakar. But we saw it with so many of the full face made up characters, where you could see like the makeup moved with their face so easily, and you could see the emotions, and you didn't see the lines. Like, you really couldn't tell where the prosthetics began and the actor's skin stopped. Like, you just couldn't do it. This makeup in this episode was it was very stiff, it seemed like to me. I could see, and I understand, like, they were trying to mask it with the tentacles or whatever, but like around the eyes and around the mouth, it looked like a mask where they had left the jaw open so that the jaw could keep moving, but the rest of the face was just still. And with these fish, and I know there's literally nothing they could have done about this, just limits. As soon as they open their mouth, their lips, the inside of their mouths are pink as all get out, and their teeth are all white, and it is just a human's mouth. And it just did not blend with the makeup at all. It really stood out. And I just found it real jarring through the whole episode watching this thing that I was like, meh.
I appreciated the flashback scenes that were in black and white for almost that purpose. Once you took the color out of the equation, they didn't look that bad. It still looked like Spirit Halloween store, quality, but taking the color out of it but the fact that around the mouths it was still mostly like white.
Yeah.
And then like that green, and then the actor who played Lissa just looked so uncomfortable in all that, like, she couldn't talk, very smoothly, and it was just, yeah, it was off-putting very much. So I will say that on my second watch, on my notes, I was specifically looking for some X-Files things and noticed that her little hair tentacle things were remarkably more red than either Kendar's or Draconis. So it's like, okay, so they're making her the Scully. I see that.
I did notice the red. Of course, I didn't have the references to X-Files to be able to make that connection at all, but I did notice they were red.
Speaking of the superficial stuff, what did you think about the Poop B story?
Here was my note, Jeff, and I need you to get ready for your little censor button there. The pipe burst. Ew. That was my whole note about that.
It was gross. The sound was everything it needed to be. The thing that I took out of it, like, to make this, there's a legitimate thing. We forget that ship was a prototype.
Right.
So of course all of the fittings aren't perfect and everything. It's just super unfortunate it was that one. But I loved the fact, though, that Gideon was just like, do you smell that? And no one can smell it until Kendar goes by and he's just like, hey, do you guys smell that? Ha ha ha. Well done.
Right.
So just to get it out of the way, I did capture the X-File references I got. And I'm sure there are more out there. The references are out there, but the episode starts with, we're here in the Eridani sector. It's this date and it's this time. That's how X-Files started each episode.
Okay.
There was an episode of X-Files that did an inverse of this. So we got, in the flashback, we got the alien who was a human under the alien mask, who then was an alien under the human mask. And they did
and in real life was
around.
A human under that alien mask.
Under that mask.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was, who had the red tentacles. Near the end, Kendar says Durkani starts to say, the truth is out. And then Kendar cuts him off with, of fashion. But the truth is out there was the tagline for this series. And then when he lights up the cigarette, the kind of one of the main mysterious characters throughout most of the series was the cigarette smoking man. Never had a name, he just smoked, and so it was a thing. So there's the references to X-Files. Now we can talk about the rest of the episode.
Fair enough. I hate to say, I don't know that I have a ton to say about the episode. I've got a lot to say about how it ended, but like a lot of it was more just kind of noting like what was going on, that I think had I caught all the references and been in that, like I was like, oh, so now we're in a black and white film noir. Okay, whatever. Here's this. We got a little bit more about the telepath war, like at least some confirmation on that. And you know what we saw in this episode for the very first time? Matheson using his telepathic abilities.
Exactly.
We have yet to have seen that, and now we have seen that. But we get in here that the Psy-Corps is done. For whatever happened in those books we haven't read yet, whatever happened, the Psy-Corps is done. He says, following the regs are all that stands between us and the creation of a new Psy-Corps.
I had a lot of questions about that, though. I find that, it makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Psy-Corps was bad, right? Like, that's a thing that we saw very clearly, even we're told time and time again that they were bad. But what do they do with the telepaths now? Like, are they just out there? Am I just, Ivanova can just not have to worry about Psy-Corps ever finding her, just whatever? Do they have to register? Is there any sort of anything? But my big question was, in the cool uniforms they had, he had a Psy-Corps badge on his shoulder, and on these new ones, he has a Psy-Corps logo on his stat bar.
Does he? Interesting.
If the Psy-Corps was bad, right, and it was an awful thing for the telepaths, wouldn't slapping him with this symbol be a slap in the face?
Unless they redefined what it meant, and we've seen that. We've seen where people, where something that is a negative gets redefined into something that is actually a positive. Unfortunately, we've usually seen it go the other way around. Something that's a positive getting redefined into something that's a negative. Looking at you, swastika. I don't know what the actual name of that is. That's not German sounding, but I know it's flipped around and turned at an angle.
And it used to be a really great thing that was everywhere. Like, it was used in a lot of places in the world. It meant what, like fortune or good luck or
fortune,
something like
life.
that.
Yeah. Like it was something good, but
not now.
Yeah, it certainly got twisted. So I will say this. I had two experiences. You and I have actually already discussed one of these. Well, I think we might have discussed it with our council chambers earlier. There were two characters in this that were under the full face makeup that made me sit back and go, wait, is this that other actor that played in Babylon 5? The first one was whatever the main guy's name was. I forget his name.
Durkani.
I was like, I swore, Jeff, for the first 10, 15 minutes of the episode, I was like, this is the guy that plays Byron. Like, I was just like, is this Byron? Like, and it took everything within me not to like IMDb it or Wikipedia it or something to try to find out. And I still haven't gone back and looked, but I think ultimately I decided it's not Robin Downey Atkinson or something like that.
Something like that. I always forget his name. I get him mixed up with Rowan Atkinson, which is not the same at all.
Right. So it's not him. Now, this other one, I don't know if it's him or not. The guy that played Agent Kendar, his voice was so affected. It's a remarkable ship. Excellent. You know who he sounded like to me? The guy who did Soul Hunter.
Stand by. We'll be right back. Are you ready to take your Babylon 5 for the first time experience to the next level? With our exclusive Patreon, you'll get access to all kinds of cool stuff that you can only find there. Our recording notes, unedited reaction videos, an exclusive Discord community. And you can even be listed as a producer of the show. Plus, we even offer exclusive meet and greets and hangouts. You won't find this kind of experience anywhere else. Get all these amazing benefits, plus the opportunity to interact with other fans from around the world. It's being part of a huge community where everyone shares the same appreciation for Babylon 5. Subscribe at patreon.com/Babylon5First. That's the number 5 and the word first to get access to these incredible benefits. That's patreon.com/Babylon5First. We can't wait to see you there. I thought the same thing.
Did you?
I didn't like. I was going through just thinking to myself, who was this guy in Babylon 5?
Yeah.
Like, he had to have been somebody in it, but I don't recognize the actor's name from anything. So he might have been back in B5, but when I went and saw the cat, I'm like, I don't recognize that name.
And to be clear, we're talking about Soul Hunter from like episode 2 of the series, not Soul Hunter from the film A Call to Arms that was played by Martin Sheen.
Correct. We're talking about the that guy. But he was, that voice, he did a great job.
Mm-hmm.
That was good impression. Wow. Did they really put, we had many wars, civil wars.
No,
wow.
We had many wars, civil wars. Just everything was like drawn way out.
Episode would have been 38 minutes if he just spoke at a regular cadence.
Yeah.
I feel like, Brent, this was an excellent Gideon episode.
Yeah.
He stood out really well. There was he and Matheson had some good and back and forth. And he's like, how do we get into this mess? Act of mercy. Well, remind me never to do that again.
Right. I'm
going to have that embroidered somewhere. But I also liked how, like, he was just great with this whole thing. This whole conspiracy lands in his lap. He hears the guy out. Like, he listens. He's going to trust but verify sort of a thing. He even gives Kendar the chance. You know, tell me your stuff. What's going on? And then he's like, no, we're done. And at the end, was just like, yeah, let's launch the stuff. Tell him everything. Tell him that this is all whatever, and let's get out of here. We're done.
Yeah, I very much I liked this from Gideon. He and I want to say it was Matheson. They were having a conversation about whether or not he was going to be the one to go down there. Very, very Riker Picard type of a conversation. And I love that he pulled out Captain's prerogative.
Mm-hmm.
There's no sense of danger. There's no whatever. So this is Captain's prerogative. I'm going. Like he just pulled the card out, and I was like, I love that you said that. And I was like, I really like this idea of Captain's prerogative on that particular level. So I appreciated that.
It was funny, though, because he's like, there's no danger. It's probably going to be fine. And then literally an entire platoon of Marines head in with their guns pointed straight at it like, oh, my gosh, what's good? And then there's just these two little people, and they're like, oh, my gosh.
We got to see kind of a new side of the Excalibur in this one. We spent a lot of time in I'm going to call it the subway tube. I didn't catch what they called it. Well, first of all, and I feel like I've said this before, I'm going to say it again. Every time I see that subway set, I just expect to see Bester and Garibaldi sitting in there.
Mm-hmm. When the car specifically, right?
But we saw the tube. We spent a lot of time in the tube. Obviously, we had the poop pipe going on. But like, there's this whole ending scene where people are rappelling down ropes, like TAC team type stuff. Like, where are you coming from? But they had, and even to the ending joke of him sitting there with his legs up in the T and feeling the wind as he goes by. Yeah. Although he did talk about he likes to feel the ebb and the flow of the wind. I was like, I think I prefer to feel wind to flow, not ebb. Like, I don't want the wind pulling away from me. Like,
yeah, I just want this.
Yeah.
This right here. What did you think of that scene with him all, vacationed up and feet kicked back, drinking his iced tea?
Man, I mean, that's how I live my life, dude. I've just never done it like that in a subway before. But I was sitting there, it's like, the thing that can't be that relaxing is the noise, the sound that has to echo through there.
Maybe.
But he likes feeling the wind. Okay. Like, hey, man, glass of tea. You know what I was mostly concerned about in that particular shot? How much sugar is in that tea? Is he just drinking it? Like, is it just straight iced tea, unsweetened? Does he have any lemon in it? Is it actually sweetened iced tea? Is it so sweetened that he has tea with the sugar? Like, I'm a Southern guy, and that's how we make our iced tea. You know what I mean?
Got your sweet tea.
Oh yeah, baby. Oh yeah. So I was really like, was it Lipton? Was it some other, like, where'd he get the tea from?
I have a hard enough time getting coffee. How do you get tea?
Right.
I was interested by the whole scene when he was talking about the wind with Matheson. Like, he was intense about that whole thing. And I was like, this is the thing you're going to get super intense about. But then I thought, dude's a captain of, this big ship. He's probably been with Earth Force for 20 years.
Yeah.
20 years on spaceships. Yeah. I totally would get that. Missing the wind has got to be a very real thing.
I promise you one thing about it, though, Jeff. With as big of a deal as he made it about this, like, as his thing, we're never going to hear about it again.
No.
And if this show went a full 5 seasons, we still would never have heard about it again.
Gideon and wind is to Sinclair, or to Sheridan and conspiracy theories.
You're picking up exactly what I'm laying down there, my friend. Absolutely.
Well, you said when you were heading into this that we were going to talk quite a bit about the last little bit of this episode when he seeded and peppered the planet's surface. You want to dive into that?
Yeah. I think first we need to talk about what the culture was doing and have that conversation. So let's rewind that and go. So they were a culture that was bent on civil war and destroying each other. And the leaders came together and like, listen, if we can give our people effectively a common enemy, we can get them to unite and we'll settle down these civil wars. Somehow, I think you said it and I didn't write it down. Somehow they picked Earth. They found out about Earth and they picked these Earthlings.
It was totally random. They were picking up signals from other worlds and we'll do this one.
Which is like, do you remember the movie Galaxy Quest?
Oh, yeah.
It's like, what would have happened there, except they didn't like feed into it, like
totally.
So they start perpetuating these ideas of alien invasions occurring from these weird Earth looking people to the point that it actually takes over their culture. They start dressing like us and they start building their stuff like us and they start talking like us. And it literally takes over the whole dang culture, but it's keeping the peace there. Now, they're not really a spacefaring civilization yet, right? Or not outside of their solar system, I guess.
Exactly.
So they're still very much contained with where they are. And they talk about they had a long history of suspicion and paranoia, and it led to all sorts of wars, to which my mind went, that's the Romulans. We've seen that.
Oh, yeah.
You're just describing the Romulans. But they gave people a common enemy, and they just were able to blame everything on the aliens.
The outsiders.
Now, my question there immediately was, so what happens when the people advance to a point where they can go out beyond their solar system and actually start meeting real Earthlings if they think that these guys are what they are? Now, that's the context of where we are. Gideon goes, screw that. I don't like being used.
Mm-hmm.
And he just goes and bombards their planet and all these different pieces with, hey, here's the real truth of what's going on. And my response when I saw that, my immediate response, without even really thinking about it, was he can't do that. He does not have the right to do this. That is, he is interfering in their culture and what's going on there. And I know that they don't have a prime directive. And this, to your point, of he's just giving them, that's JMS giving the middle finger to the prime directive. I get it.
Well, it was explicit, right? Matheson says, some will say you're interfering in other cultures. And Gideon says, screw them.
Yeah.
Just that. There's no like perceived middle finger. It's straight up.
He's saying that. And that being said, while I understand, and I even to some point agree with what Gideon was saying, listen, the truth will out. What's he say? He says, if you let the truth back in the room, the truth can take care of itself. But in doing so, this is going to reignite civil wars. This is going to turn people in a not great way. And I get it. There's this sci-fi thing of like, listen, people aren't going to like it, but it's going to lead to the better deal. It's going to lead to the better idea. And I don't know that that's the truth. I don't know that that's how that actually works. What he did was he just set off effectively a figurative atom bomb on that world where they could actually blow themselves up because of this, and they weren't ready to hear that yet.
Exactly.
It doesn't affect us. It doesn't affect humanity at all to let them have issues with us.
I get where he was coming from. Like exactly what you said. Someday they're going to run into us and they can't think we're this thing.
Yep.
But I totally agree. That was my snarky comment at the end of the recap. It's like, yeah, this is totally going to take care of the conspiracy things because they're going to kill him. It's literally going to lead to a massive uprising.
Although I can't say that Gideon was wrong for saying he doesn't want Earth to be blamed for something that we didn't do. And he doesn't like being manipulated. Nobody likes being manipulated. No Earthling likes being manipulated. No Earthling likes being used. You try that with us, and we're going to push back.
Mm-hmm.
I get it. But I still don't think he should have done it. And I do not think that putting the truth out there is actually going to help this culture. And in fact, I think he literally could be destroying the culture. And if they do, that's on themselves because they shouldn't be doing that. I do think that if he wants to break up the conspiracy, and I think it's a good thing to break up the conspiracy.
Yeah.
The best way he can do that is through more diplomatic means. Actually go land on the planet. Avoid starting a war. Understand that you're walking in. They're going to be guns blazing on you as soon as you show up. You've got to calm that down and show them that you're not the enemy. But guess what, guys? There's this whole galaxy out there full of a lot of folks, and some of them aren't so good. Let's talk about the Shadows and the Vorlons and the Drog. In my note, I say they should institute some sort of a prime directive. Maybe they should, maybe they shouldn't. That might be going a bridge too far. But here, Jeff, I think Gideon is wrong to do this. But I understand it. But I think he's wrong. But I understand it. But I think he's wrong.
Stand by. We'll be right back.
Snoogans.
Shall we play a game?
It's over, Johnny.
Wrong, sir.
No! Oh, wow, man.
Hey, if you recognize those sounds, then you're probably somebody who would like our show. We are called Did You Hear About This? And we talk about all kinds of news stories. It's like the 80s and 90s stuff that we grew up on.
Yeah, this isn't stuff that's getting covered on the 10 o'clock news, I'll tell you that.
You can check us out at didyouhearaboutthis.show. We're on every single podcast platform. Go find us.
It's like he was wrong and it was the thing to do and it was wrong.
Yeah.
I agree on almost everything. I think that them landing would have been more catastrophic than what he did. Imagine right now, as we're talking, the UFO lands on the lawn of the White House and they're like, hey, it's cool. No one is going to believe that. That's not.
Well, and let me clarify. I don't mean the Excalibur crew land on the planet. I mean, you've got people on Earth who are qualified to do first contact stuff the right way and to make those incremental introductions as they go, like whatever that diplomatic process is that allows that to happen. Gideon and the crew don't need to land on the planet. Let's be clear about that. Yeah, that's not good.
But I think too, like Kendar showed us how that would play out, because as soon as he was in the room with Dracani and Alyssa, he started speaking in their language like, hey, this worked out exactly how we planned. I told these guys to come out and get you. And so I think like at this point in where they are, any actual interaction with humans would be catastrophic for them. Like absolute disaster. If this was a different sci-fi series that apparently we only like sections of and not all of, they would have some probe set up and some protocol of, hey, when they reach this point, let's make sure we're there to kind of put these things in place or whatever. But I do think it has to be something along those lines of Gideon going back to Earth Force and saying, so here's this thing over here. We need to do a flyby like every year or so and just see where they're at and then start slowly seeding things in. But yeah, him dropping stuff on there was hugely bad.
That being said, Jeff, and if this is our third reference, then this needs to be our third reference. All right. Can we just say, as longtime veteran Star Trek podcasters, Jeff, the Prime Directive is full of flaws and gets broken constantly when it serves the plot of the episode.
Absolutely.
Like, it is not a perfect thing by any stretch of the imagination. So I understand there's a lot of flaws with the Prime Directive and how that goes. I get it. And I'm with you on that. And that's why I hesitate saying they need to introduce a Prime Directive, but this needs to be something that's handled more than just, hey, let's drop a bunch of truth bombs all over the place and let it be whatever it is. But it's the truth. It's the truth. There's an interesting thing, Jeff.
Mm-hmm.
When is it not so helpful to have the full truth come out? Are there times in life when you should not actually know the truth?
Absolutely. As an executive in a very large company, that's a big part of my job. Determining, hey, does this need to go out, to what level, how much of it needs to go out? And it's not that we're trying to hide anything by any means. What happens is, if we were to share absolutely everything that happened, people would lose their minds. They'd focus all this attention to this thing over here. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like, here's this information we have, and it really shines a light on this thing here, but it's not important, and we need to be over here in the meantime. We'll handle this. It's not a big thing. And so sharing that's not, it's not about being transparent or deceiving or anything. It's just, it's not helpful to share everything. And I'll make it even more simple. Are we straight up honest with our kids all the time? Tooth Fairy, Santa Claus. I'm saying that quietly because I lie to my daughter and she's right down the hall.
I don't know what you're talking about lying, dude.
Well, actually, your Santa Claus thing is matter of fact. Like, I don't know how much more we have to talk about this one. If you want to take some time, I love what you say about
this. Is not the time to talk about the Santa Claus thing. We should do that sometime. So here's the deal. Santa Claus is real. I know because I'm him. That's it right there.
And so are you.
Yeah.
And you.
Okay. Sorry. The idea of Santa Claus is no. He's not a person. He is a spirit. Any parent, anyone who is up late at night on a Christmas Eve, wrapping presents and setting stuff out, that's Santa. That's what Santa Claus is. Like, that is the spirit of Santa Claus throughout the whole deal. So, the whole red dude and reindeer and all that, that's just what we tell children to give them a picture of what that is, so that they then can be introduced to what it is to be, to have and embody the spirit of Santa Claus, or the Christmas spirit, as you will, themselves. And to become a Santa Claus. Anyway, that's the very, very short version of all that. Where were we going with that? Oh, yeah. The whole truth is just not helpful. And, and here's the thing. And I heard somebody, and this was an issue where it was a child talking to, it was an adult child talking to their parent about the ideas of introducing little kids to the nitty gritty of human reproduction.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm.
I forget exactly how it goes, but basically it was like, hey, well, do me a favor, go pick up that suitcase over there, the really heavy suitcase, and the kid would walk over and would struggle to carry it or whatever. And the parent would be like, hey, listen, that thing right there is too heavy for you to carry right now. One day you'll be able to carry that just fine. But for right now, it's a little too heavy. So I'm not going to ask you to carry that. Information is like that. Truth can be like that. It's just a little too heavy. You'll get there. You're just not there yet. And so I need to carry it for you. I wouldn't be loving you if I tried to make you carry that right now.
I like that.
And that's what happened here. Gideon was not loving the people of this world by dropping those truth bombs all over the place.
No, he wasn't. And I think to take that analogy and move it, because I think there's more to it than that, right? Like I was talking about, sometimes it's, I don't need you to pick that suitcase up. I need you to move that box over there. Like, they're different things. And I think both of those apply with Gideon. There wasn't the whole, you're not ready for this. And also at this point, it just wasn't helpful for them to know all of this. It
felt like he was simply just doing it out of spite and vengeance. Maybe not vengeance, but certainly out of spite. It just pissed him off. He didn't like being used or manipulated, which we get.
And he took the time to make sure everybody knew about it.
With that, Jeff, this is typically the point where I'd be like, okay, so we've reached that part of the show where we boil it all down and see if this episode has any of those deep moral messages to it, holding up a mirror to society, giving us hope things can be better in the future. Does it tell us how to be better human beings to one another? And how is it doing that in its own unique Crusade / Babylon 5 type way? I think we just did that, though. So, Jeff, I'll let you. I was going to say, I'm going to turn this over to you to kind of do that or anything else and kind of put a capstone on this part of the conversation, because I think we've been having this conversation just a little bit over the last couple minutes.
We absolutely have, and I just have a handful of extra little. I'm going to add a little bit to some of those things. One, I just wanted to add the flavor on the nothing brings people together like a common enemy. We talked about that pretty extensively back during Babylon 5. Sheridan was able to unite a whole bunch of people because we had the shadows, right? And we were going to go after them. Or then he was able to, eventually united. They were going to unite against the Centauri at the end and everything like that. But there was that middle time when there wasn't a common enemy, where he was trying to build the Interstellar Alliance, and he was having a really hard time bringing people together. And so I feel like that approach of finding a common enemy is like a cheat code to bringing people together. And it's one that we see happen right now. As we record this, Brent, we're a week out from our next set of elections that are going to happen. Mm-hmm. And so my YouTube ads, my text messages, my whatever is flooded with two groups trying to unite me against two different common enemies, essentially. And it's just like, come on, like it's doesn't work for this race. It doesn't work for this race of which we are a part either. With the conspiracy theory part, I was really struck by Durkani, because I loved that he was questioning everything. And I think we should always question everything. But he was so locked into his own preconceived notions that even though he was questioning everything, it didn't matter what the answer was. He'd already decided that. A second ago, I was talking about this election that's coming up. Question everything. Question the candidates, question whatever. And don't be so locked into your own preconceived notions one way or the other that the answer that's not what you want to hear is wrong. Because that's the quote-unquote discourse I tend to have with the people in my life of, hey, this person said this. Well, I don't know. I mean, did you ever see it from this perspective? Well, no, and you're an evil person and a horrible bigot and should be beaten up and shunned and whatever because you're even asking that question. No, I'm just asking the question. Like, I'm just trying to see the stuff. We've become so locked into our own bubbles that we can't even imagine the possibility of something outside of that. Durkani couldn't even imagine that Gideon and crew weren't evil. And like the moment when he were in the brig and he looks at Lista and he's like, did you see his eyes? He honestly doesn't believe there's anything going on here. But instead of taking that and going, so maybe we can connect with them and learn stuff, he said, so their government is lying to them too about all of this. Like it just went the worst possible direction.
Which that could be true.
Well, either could be true, but it's just interesting that that's the direction he went, though.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm not trying to throw you off. It just, their government could be like, well,
we know a little bit about their government. They are.
No, I mean our government could be lying to us.
Absolutely. But I think with him also, and this is back to Gideon's approach on, peppering the planet with everything. There was the line, I think it was Kendar said, but a conspiracy needs true believers to keep it alive. True believers come from a lack of other information, right? When I become so locked in my bubble that I won't hear any other information or no other information is provided to me, then I become a true believer. Gideon had an opportunity with Durkani and Lissa to sit down and say, listen, everything that you've been shown, told, and whatever, not real. And I want to be clear too, they left before Kendar told them the whole story. But even based on the stuff they had back and forth, he could have been, no, that's not what we do. 200 years ago, we couldn't even physically get here. We weren't able to. Like, everything you're hearing isn't true. Let me tell you about us. Let me talk about some of the cool stuff that we're doing in the galaxy, who we really are. Give him information to the contrary. Not the whole planet, but this true believer conspiracy theorist. Sit down and say, yes, we are real. No, your government doesn't know us. And here's the real story. And I can show you receipts. Here's the Interstellar Encyclopedia. Here's this. And yeah, you might be so locked into your bubble that you're going to be like, well, you just made all that up. So this, that, and the other. But offer the information. That's going to be less hurtful than throwing everything down on the planet's surface. And I think kind of the overarching episode of the end, and we interrogated it quite a bit already, so I won't dive in much more, but the idea that you can let the truth back into the room and the truth can take care of itself. Yes, and it can cause a lot of damage in the meantime. It's difficult, and I'm going to take a risk in saying this, but it's important that you speak your truth, that you have your truth. You speak truth to to power. All those things are true, and it can be done in a way that is not helpful, that closes you and others off to other truths, right? I talked about in my job, I work for a large company, couple $1 billion budget, do quite a bit. And we use a term when it comes to budget of one version of the truth, because we have multiple versions of our budgetary truth, depending on what slice of the pie you're trying to get. Is it about our head count? Is it about, what part of this are we trying to get? It's all true. It's a different version of it. And so I think I just want to kind of put out there that truth is subjective oftentimes, and that needs to be kept in mind, that it can't just be dropped. Here's the tag on the whole thing. It can't just be dropped on a person, a community, or a planet and expected to work itself out.
Right.
This had a lot of messages in it, despite being all that it was. But Brent, I think it's time now for us to lighten things up a little bit, have a little more fun. You get to lead us on that trail, because we are creating the absolutely objectively. There is no one version of the truth. This is the truth. This is an objective truth. The ranking of the entire series of Crusade. You get to rank Visitors from Down the Street. Our current top 5. I'll start in position number 5 is Racing the Night. Number 4, we have Appearances and Other Deceits. 3 is Warzone. Number 2 is The Needs of Earth. And our number 1 episode is The Long Road. Brent, where do Visitors land in this list?
Jeff, what is number 6 on the list right now?
Number 6, Memory of War is number 6.
Yep.
I had no memory of that war because
I didn't either. So this is an episode that I think you have to ask the question is, how much did I like it? And how much did I like it in comparison to some of these other episodes? And I think I might make a few people upset with this one, and that's okay.
Okay.
Here's the thing. This is not coming close to touching Long Road, Needs of Earth, Warzone. But then I look at Appearances and Other Deceits. I look at Racing the Night. I look at Memory of War. Well, this is way better than Memory of War. What about Racing the Night, though? And then Appearances and Other Deceits. Like where are we in that realm? And I think back to Racing the Night. And Racing the Night was kind of one of those episodes where I just remember kind of being left with, I didn't not like it. I just remember being left with sort of a WTF moment at the end. Like, what was that? And I know a lot of people really like Racing the Night. Mm-hmm. There were several people like, this is my favorite episode of the series. Cool. But is Racing the Night better or worse than this episode, Visitors from Down the Street? And that's really hard to say. So I'm left with kind of applying my litmus test at this point. Which episode would I like to watch again first? Honestly, I'd rather watch this episode. Jeff, this is our new number 5. It's going to push Racing the Night out of our top 5. I did have fun with this episode. I will tell you, I did have fun with it.
I liked Racing the Night.
Yeah.
I mean, I was even questioning if it went above Appearances and Other Deceits when I did my ranking, but I don't disagree. This was a fun episode to watch. This episode to me ultimately is my indictment against modern day TV. With modern day TV, 8, 10, 13 episode seasons, we don't get stuff like this.
Yeah.
And stuff like this is fun.
It's fun. Yeah. It's fun. And you know what? If I had any sort of connection to X-Files, I probably would have liked this episode a whole lot more than I did. So, but I did. I enjoyed the episode. I thought it was, I'm sorry. Fish people in 3-piece suits.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
How do you not like that?
Right. Right. The poop pipe burst in the subway. So, it's good. I enjoyed it.
The sound engineering in that scene alone keeps this in the top 5. That is a feat. Brent, that's going to do it for Visitors from Down the Street. Next week, we're watching an episode called Each Night I Dream of Home for the first time. This series has some very long episode titles.
Yeah.
I mean, like literally between me starting to say the episode title and finishing it, Brent had a chance to go and see what the synopsis of the episode was, because we haven't looked these up before at all. This is the game we like to play, our prediction game. We're going to guess what it's going to be based on title alone. So, Brent, what did you read about Each Night I Dream of Home?
Well, I didn't read anything, but I will tell you, I have reached a point with my predictions that I'm going to continue to make this prediction until it happens, Jeff, because it has to. Like, by the numbers, it has to happen sooner rather than later. All right? Here's my prediction. This is the episode where we see Lockley.
Okay.
And I'm going to continue to make that the prediction until we see Lockley. But I think this is an episode where we see Lockley. Each Night I Dream of Home. People are getting homesick, Jeff. They're getting homesick, so it's time to swing by Babylon 5 for a little taste of home. It is still an Earth Force, under Earth Force control, a little shore leave, a little whatever. Each Night I Dream of Home. We're going to see Lockley, and are they going to pick Lockley up and take him with her to, give her reason to be in the opening credits? Or is Tracy Scoggins like the Drew Barrymore of the Scream films? You know what I mean when I say, like, Drew Barrymore was in all of 6 minutes of those films, and she gets top billing over the whole franchise.
She spent more time in the promotional materials than she did in the film itself.
So is Tracy Scoggins that for Crusade?
That'd be a sweet deal.
Maybe. So yeah, that's what I say. This is where we meet Lockley. Babylon 5, people are homesick. That's what I got. What about you, Jeff?
I had the exact same prediction. Exactly the same. But I'm going to go ahead and just to differentiate us a little bit, I'm going to add a twist, because when you were talking about Lockley, what came to mind for me was Every Night I Dream of Home, Day of the Dead, Zoe, maybe a part of Lockley coming on. Everyone's homesick, and so is she. And she's remembering that time that she got to, have a conversation with her best friend.
Are you sure it was the best friend?
Yeah, they were best friends.
Okay.
That's why her password is Zoe is dead.
Okay.
What? You don't think they were?
I think it might have been a little bit more than just best friends. Just saying.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily disagree with that at all. Just wasn't good. Her bestest friend. Bestest of best friends. Either way, we'll find out right here next week. Thank you, everybody, so much for joining us. We really appreciate it when you hang out with us and listen to us talk about this old sci-fi TV show that didn't get the time in the sun that it should have gotten. Please don't forget to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, wherever you watch your videos. Leave us a rating and a review. Do all that stuff. But the one thing I am going to specifically ask you to do that will mean everything in the world is please share this podcast, share this YouTube channel with anybody out there who has any love for science fiction whatsoever. This is a series they should be watching. So until next time, we're going to go ahead and wrap
Jeff.
Yeah, what's up?
Do you smell that?
I don't know. It must be in the building. I don't know. It's probably in the outflow system.
Yeah, well, maybe it'll just flow back out.
Or maybe it'll come up through the can and grab you by the nugs.
Ugh. Keep climbing. Keep climbing.
Where are you going? I don't know.